And welcome to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwak, Chair, and of course, the Libertarian National Committee, Joseph Bishop Henchman, Chair. As always, John Gapso is on the big board, and I'm your host, Pat Ford. Joining us tonight, Whitney Bilyeu. She, of course, is the chair of the Libertarian Party of Texas.
Hi, Pat.
As always, we have a few purposes for this show. We want to illustrate the best practices that are employed by affiliates across the country and ultimately across the world. What are those practices? Media, affiliate formation, legislative affairs, get out the vote, candidate selection. We could spend hours with each respective state chair. The most important part is to develop an affinity between libertarian affiliates, again, around this country, around the world. For all of us to understand that the candidate running, well, in Texas, as it were tonight, is just as important to the philosophy as, say, a candidate running in your home state, whether it be Washington, perhaps Rhode Island, Maine, wherever. And that the fact that by working together as a national organization and a confederation of affiliates, that we can learn from each other and we can provide a stronger network to support our philosophy, our candidates, our national party, and of course, ultimately, our message. Whitney, thanks for joining us tonight. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. Texas has an astonishing track record of success. Let's dive right in. As always, every week we ask some of the same questions. A little bit of a formula here, but what was your libertarian moment, and how did you come to join the Libertarian Party?
Well, my libertarian moment was probably my entire life. Just didn't realize that I had a political home until about 2012. You may be familiar with Heather Fazio. She's involved with a lot of marijuana policy work now, and she was working for LP Texas at the time. And she had posted, back then I was very new to Facebook, and she had posted an ad looking for candidates, not necessarily libertarian candidates, but just candidates in general. And she had posted it from the Libertarian Party of Texas. And I clicked on it, and she called me. And because I'm in Harris County, she connected me with my county chair here. And the rest is history. I've been involved ever since then. So going on 10 years, actively involved at all levels at this point, and never going to turn back.
Excellent. Is it, what aspect of say, whether it be the statement of principles or platform, do you is really speaks to you on a personal level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the platform for sure. Everything about it, just the whole, the focus on the individual being the most, the most important piece of this huge puzzle, and the rights of the individual being paramount. And that's what I'm here fighting for.
Excellent. Professionally, you were involved at a very high level and a very prominent Texas organization as running the sales operation, your vice president of sales, as I understand. What being successful at that level clearly has taught you about messaging. If there's lessons that you can draw, because one of our most significant challenges right now is in fact messaging, particularly during the plague, the epidemic, the pandemic, however you want to refer to it. But what lessons would you draw from that high level, that C-suite experience in sales to messaging politically?
Well, it's actually very different. I think in the business world, sometimes we can match whatever products we have available to the needs of the client or the customer. In this particular case with politics, with the Libertarian Party in particular, since we are the party of principle, we have a bill of goods that we're selling, and we aren't necessarily going to adjust or tailor those products to satisfy people we're trying to sell them to. We're trying to, some of us are out there trying to convince them that this is really what they want, and that the only way to get the thing they want is by supporting us and, riding with us on this journey. So we're not going to be able to change our messaging necessarily to satisfy other people, but we can, change the way we approach people and help them and interpret for them what we're doing and what we want, and help them see that that's actually the best thing for everyone.
Now, Texas, we've had a number of large state chairs on, in the last over the last, say, 2 months or so that we've been doing this doing this program, and we talk about diversity. And there's diversity in media markets. There's diversity in issuing importance. There's diversity, if you will, within the population itself. There's diversity in virtually every aspect of what you do. How do you manage that? Say, for example, let's start out on a media basis. You've got dozens of major media markets. Do you have an organization within the Libertarian Party of Texas, LP Texas, if you will, that manages that process? How do you work across such a diverse community?
We do now. We have a very active communications department, and we recently purchased a media list that's specific to Texas, and it obviously is sortable by major market and wherever we're trying to communicate. And our communications director is prepared to, whenever we get a new county affiliated, send out press releases to whoever the local media contacts are there. So we've got almost 2,000 media contacts statewide now that we have access to. And so we're really working on our media communication program and press releases and op-eds and all kinds of things like that we're really trying to do. And also trying to encourage our counties, if they have local contacts in their media, to share those with us too, so that we can spread those messages farther and reach more people, because this is only going to work if our county affiliates are actually engaged with their local media too. A lot of times that's where we get the attention, is with those smaller markets, and maybe some of the larger ones pick them up. But we've had a lot of success with our Twitter account recently, and we've been picked up quite a few times by major media just from our Twitter account. So that's really exciting. That what our communications department is doing right now is really impressive.
Well, two comments. First of all, your Twitter group, your Twitter department, or whoever's handling it, does a marvelous job of walking that very fine line there. And we all know how fine that line is. But yes, to date, their presentation is mature yet funny, topical yet not pedantic, accessible yet not dumbed down, and that's in a medium that is very often compared to a dumpster fire. That's amazing, as well as the memeing that comes out of your party, because which echoes seem to in lockstep with a lot of your Twitter functions. So it's great stuff for all the reasons above. It's interesting because when we spoke offline this week, and we're having this conversation now, you talk about departments. So I'm not sure that there's many affiliates that have evolved to the point where they actually talk about departments. So how many folks, for example, ballpark, are engaged in communication efforts on behalf of, say, the state affiliate, and how does that drill down to some of the larger local affiliates?
So we have our state communications department is really the only one that I can speak of as far as functioning and active communications departments. We have a director, and then I believe we have 4 or 5 staff members under there, and then a couple extra volunteers. So it's that department itself is, in my opinion, significant. It's more than we've had in the past, and we're still adding on more staff members. And all of our staff is volunteer, with 2 exceptions right now. So that's huge, and it's like a full-time job for them. And so I continue every day to be just moved by everything that they're doing. And we just had an executive committee meeting this Saturday, and that was one of the first things that I wanted to do, was just recognize all these people for everything that they're doing all day. It feels like all day, every day, as I know I am, and my fellow officers are. And it's really heartwarming and encouraging that they're taking this so seriously and putting so much into it with no compensation.
Well, absolutely, and they're able to seemingly ride the tiger, if you will, of the news cycle, and yes, that's equally impressive, because that's so difficult to do, even by professionally highly compensated news operations. Yeah. Have you gone to the extent? Do you have an organizational chart that's well developed?
We do.
When you talk about departments, talk to that a little bit, and how you took it from being a chart to a living, breathing effort with people involved at every level. That's the special sauce that is such a challenge to so many affiliates.
Yeah. The org chart itself has existed for a couple terms. 2 chairs ago, it was born, and it's been adapted a little bit over the years, but never really fleshed out and fully developed. And that was one of the things that I committed to do when I came on board back in August, was essentially recruiting, not just filling these positions, but recruiting people who have skills and who have demonstrated, have a history of excellence and performance in these various things, and finding the right roles for them in this organization, and surrounding myself with people who are smarter and better than me at a lot of things. And so that's what I've been able to do. And we've got an operations department, we've got a communications department, IT department, development department for fundraising, and I think that's it. Oh, a political action department. That one's important.
Okay.
We've got several departments, and we've got 4 directors currently. So there are 2 departments that are not currently staffed with directors, and so I'm overseeing those 2, and that would be IT and operations in general. And then under our operations, for example, we have volunteer coordinator, we have we're now calling them affiliate coordinator, but they're the ones that organize our county affiliates. And that process, and we can get into if you want later, we've got development director who supervises the fundraising efforts, whether it's letter writing campaigns or we have a commission-based fundraiser who's focused specifically on getting people to sign on as monthly donors, so recurring, to increase our recurring monthly revenue, and making sure people's memberships don't expire and things like that. So we've got someone focused on that. And then our political action department, we've got a legislative coordinator right now who we are paying to do some lobbying for us, because this cycle has been exceedingly, they're getting more and more difficult and dangerous for us. So we wanted to make sure that we had somebody there as close to full-time as possible this term. So we've actually been able to raise a good bit of money, above and beyond actually the goal that we set well before our deadline to get this done. And we've had a lot of really good success with fundraising since my officer team and I and our new executive committee came on in August. So, and then again, my communications department, which we already talked about, is everybody's just working all day, every day, and making this stuff happen and making it work, and with very little complaining.
No, absolutely no. It's with the benefit of departments comes structure. With structure becomes accountability. On the other hand, a near and dear friend to me once said, "You can't fire volunteers per se," and there's a lot of truth to that.
I disagree.
Okay, please do, because I know I have certainly folks within the libertarian movement who are equally divided by that. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, I'll start with how we hire them in the first place. We have policies established that have been established for a while, actually, where if we're looking to fill a position, or someone just wants to take a role in the organization, an official staff position with a title, we have an application process. Like, there's an official application process, and we have an interview process where there's a panel of 3 that they have to get through, and it has to be unanimous in order for people to be added, onto our staff. And the same thing applies actually for our temporary county chair appointments. So it is very rigorous, and it is very strict, if you will. And from my perspective as the manager of this, because we don't currently have an executive director, so and we won't probably until we can pay one, which actually was also a goal of mine, a stretch goal of mine, when I decided to run for chair. But I do believe that volunteers can be fired, and it has happened in the past prior to my term, and it actually has happened since I took office as well. And it's sometimes, if it's just not the best person for the role, then it's not the best person for the role, and it doesn't necessarily have to be punitive or anything like that. It's just there has to be this sort of, I don't like to use buzzwords, but synergy was once one, and there has to be this synergy and this chemistry and this positive dynamic with all the people that we're working with in these leadership roles. And I consider, some of these staff positions to be leadership roles. And we all have to be able to go in the same direction with the same shared vision. And so when there are people who are either not pulling their weight or not contributing in a way that is positive and effective and forward moving, then sometimes they just need to be, they need to step aside. And obviously there are diplomatic and tactful ways of doing that. And hopefully we never get to that point. I'd prefer to just sort of redirect when need be. But so far we've had a lot of success, and I haven't had to do much, if any, of that. So,
well, yes. Then that also speaks to the availability of a large talent pool, if you will, yep. Something that as well that affiliates struggle with, because and that's not accidental by any means. What methodology or where have you found success in cultivating, first of all, recruiting, then cultivating members so that they get into that sort of, well, for lack of a better term, management track?
Well, it is true that historically, and like I said, I'm going on 10 years now, and it has been, since I started, seems like the same 12 to 15 people that do all the work statewide. They're county chairs, they're on the state executive committee. They also are volunteer staff members, and that really is starting to change. We're able to sort of spread the work around now. And some of it is people kind of recognizing that, maybe now there's a clearer vision that they want to follow and be a part of. And so they'll reach out and say they want to help. We actually got an influx of new blood, if you will, from the Joe Jorgensen campaign. There were a lot of people on that campaign who just worked tirelessly on that and just were so invigorated and energized over what happened there, and just the whole, Joe as a candidate. And we actually got a lot of people coming in wanting to join us since then. And so some of them are on our staff now, which is really, really nice. And I'm very encouraged by that. And we also we we're kind of trying to move away from Facebook group because it's just been kind of a problem for us over the years. And we now do a lot more communicating on Discord, and it is open to the public. We've got public channels that people can sign on to, and just the way that we're engaging people that way and in that format and that platform, which is we're able to make it so different than Facebook. It's just more positive, and people are just getting a better vibe and wanting to be with us and do the things that we're doing and ride along with us. And a lot of people are applying, and we've, our staff members are out there saying, hey, if you want to get involved, here's the link to our applications. And so we're getting quite a few of those, and it's really nice and really encouraging. And we ask for resumes. I mean, we take it off very seriously, and we are getting what we need. We actually, increased our staff pretty significantly in the last couple of months, and we're kind of in a lull right now, just adjusting and stabilizing a little bit. But yeah, we've been fortunate this term to, I think, like I said, the Jorgensen campaign really energized people and brought them to us, and now they're staying, and we're finding things for them to do. And we've got someone, a volunteer coordinator too, that's really, really keyed in on figuring out what people want to do and what their skills and their, tendency is as far as what kind of activities they want to participate in, and helping get them plugged in. And sometimes it's more appropriate for them to get plugged in locally instead of at the state level, especially if they're brand new to the party. So we kind of have to filter a little bit and do some screening, but our pool is definitely growing, and it's very exciting and very encouraging.
Well, you made a fascinating remark by bringing them into the Discord, as opposed to, the the perils of the greater social media world. Yeah. You're by definition, the people that they're becoming first associated with are folks who are fundamentally happy with the party. They're happy with the direction. They're looking to include and grow, as opposed to that prototypical Facebook user who is highly critical and yet ironically has never been to a single meeting. So that's a great lesson.
We do still get those, but they don't last very long in there.
Right. No, but we all do. But by definition, you're creating an initial experience for the potential new member that is more of a warm embrace than sort of a Ferris wheel ride or a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, and in Discord, if you'll allow me for a second, one of the neat features of it is that we've broken it down by Senate District too, because our executive committee is formed by Senate District, and in Texas we have 31 of them by state Senate District. So we've broken down the channels in Discord that way, and also by county. So people can come in and, you know, just be in the general population and communicate with everybody on whatever topics they want. But they can also come in as candidates or potential candidates and go to a channel focused on that. They can go to their county channel, and we've got a staff member who finds out what Senate district and what county they're in and just plugs them right in that way. So they're able to immediately connect with someone, at least virtually at first, in Discord, who is obviously a libertarian in their county that they would not otherwise not have known existed. Whereas on Facebook, it's just this big mix of people, and you have to get through a ton of layers and layers of arguments before you figure out where someone actually lives and who you might actually in real life be able to connect with. So that's a really cool feature of Discord.
Now, very little in the world happens by accident. Did you, as an organization, sit down and analyze how people would experience that initial onboarding?
No. I mean, I wasn't part of that. If it happened, no, I can't say that we did.
Okay.
I think it was really more of just how can we get away from Facebook? What can we do to get away from Facebook? And we had experimented with Discord internally first because of the national convention last year, as you know how all that turned out. And we had to come up with a plan to participate remotely, from home, at least some of us. And somebody in our group was like, hey, let's try this thing. And it worked. And we were able to use it as a way for us to communicate internally. And I would, myself as the delegation captain for Texas for National Convention, it was a tool that I had to learn very quickly. And I was resistant to it because I just didn't want another communication app to deal with. But it actually has turned out to be really, really good. And we had an opportunity internally, like I said, to work with it and all of our delegates. So that was, 140 people right there who had to learn this just to participate in our convention, in the national convention. And then we just carried it over and just kept using it since then. And, somebody was like, maybe we can just use this as our public communication platform now too. And it's taken off, and it's really cool to see every once in a while the people who come into a county that doesn't have anybody in it yet, and they're the first ones there. And we have it set up so that somebody immediately goes in there and connects with them so that they're not in there alone. And, we try to connect them with the next closest county if need be. But I don't know, somebody smarter than me and with more experience with that, just as a communication platform, figured that it would be a good thing for us. And it really has been.
Talk to us about affiliate formation, roughly. And I know this is always sort of a moving target at most states, but how many affiliates roughly do you have? And what are some of the newest and what are some of the old standbys that have worked out over the long haul?
Texas has 254 counties, and as of right now, we have 66 of them affiliated. Mm-hmm. We have had, at least during my tenure here, I think up to 88 at once, which may have been right before last state convention. That, having that many isn't necessarily the goal. We thought for a time that was the most important thing to do, was to get as many counties as possible affiliated, because that's where we get a lot of our candidates. Our county and some of our state level candidates, our legislature candidates that's where they get their nominations, at the county level. So the more counties we have affiliated, the more opportunities there are for candidates. But we've also had to really look at quality in addition to quantity. And so that's really what we're trying to refine right now, is getting quality county chairs who are going to stay and actually do work and actually hold conventions. Because if they don't hold a convention, they don't exist anymore. So that's the whole reason for having them. So we have a county coordinator, and actually we are about to start hiring a handful of affiliate liaisons to sort of help, once that county gets affiliated, through the work of the coordinator, then we've got someone who stays connected with them, someone who connects with the affiliates, sort of as, like I said, as a liaison. That'll actually be their title between the state party and the counties themselves, and as a resource and just sort of a sounding board maybe when they need some support, and helping us fine tune this whole process and make sure that everybody stays connected and doesn't feel, out alone on an island like many of them actually are. So we've got a really robust affiliate development system. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there's an application, and there are interviews that are pretty strenuous that they have to go through, and they have to interview with officers and or executive committee members. And then I would have, as chair, the final review of it. And it has to be unanimous agreement with everybody who does the panel interviews in order for someone to be appointed. So I would never make an appointment of a temporary county chair without having all three of the interview panelists agree to it. And there's a lot of background information that goes into it, a lot of questions that are asked. We look at people's social media accounts, and to the extent that we can, find out as much as we can about them to know who we're dealing with. This is a party right now that got really popular back in January and February for some strange reason. And we were having to really sort through a lot of these applications, all these people that decided they wanted to be libertarian candidates, and they wanted to be county chairs, and they wanted to be on our staff. And so we've had to be really cautious with this process. But so 66 may not sound like a lot, but my expectation is that this 66 is going to stay. Like it's not going to go up to 88 and then drop back down to 40 or 50. Like these should be sustainable because of the process that we're using to put them in place.
So you've built them on a firm foundation then, and you've got folks that are thoroughly vetted and the right personalities, the right match in place to at least have the
much more so than we've had in the past. Yeah. And now the next thing we're trying to put in place is a support structure for them so that they stay.
And is that at a state party level? And what type of support structure do you envision?
It would be something that we provide from the state level to the counties to the extent that we can. And of course, some of them, may have experience that can trickle back up for us as we move forward. But we're putting in place a handbook, and like I said, the liaison positions where we're going to have actual staff members who connect with them at least like on a weekly basis, and just make sure that they're being supported and that their questions are being answered, and that they're able to get the information that they need from the state level about laws or about convention procedures or documents that they have to file or accounts that they have to open or anything like that. So just making sure that there's always someone who can respond to them and hopefully provide some resources and some information to them.
Now you in a state like Texas, clearly you've got the sheer volume of candidacies that are available has got to be just overwhelming at times. Yeah. An astonishing level of different jobs titles, some for elections, some uncontested, some unappointed. That's all in terms of local races, and I'll say state Senate below. That's all driven by the independent county affiliates?
Yes. Yes. So there'll be people get their nominations for state Senate and for House seats and county level seats through their county conventions. Okay. Any statewide races would be the ones that get theirs at the state convention. Right.
So do you have that same type of insight, if you will, that same type of process for folks running for office at the local level, at the county level? Have you drilled that down even down into the counties affiliates?
We have some counties are better at it than others, I would say. We have gotten a little bit better with this last cycle. We actually had someone who, as most people who are watching this know, that none of the above is always on the ballot for us. And so every one of our candidates is always up against none of the above, which we affectionately refer to as NOTA. And, in my county, for example, in Harris County last cycle, we actually had someone noted. So there was a candidate, we preferred to have no one run for that particular, I think it was a House race or a congressional seat. I don't remember what. We would rather have no one run than that particular person. And so I think the more that our counties start utilizing that feature, the NOTA feature, I think the more we're going to wind up with really, really, good candidates that we can be proud of and that we can actually stand behind and support as an organization. Like I said, some counties, they don't have a vetting process. Someone comes out of nowhere and it's like, hey, I'm willing to run. And we want to get as many names on there as we can, but not necessarily at the expense of our principles and quality. So we're kind of learning as we go, and all of our counties are just so different. I mean, they're just so different. Harris County is not the same as Nueces County. Like, it's just different needs, different cultures, different situations, different volume of people interested and active. So sometimes they take what they get, and other times we have the benefit in Harris County, for example, and in larger counties, we have the benefit of being able to say, no, we're gonna let that one stay empty because we've got these other ones that we can focus on. So over time, perhaps we can come up with some criteria to help people determine what makes a good candidate and what doesn't, and maybe some training before people start declaring would help with that. But it's just right now we're still kind of experimenting with a lot of this, but I think people are getting more and more comfortable with the concept of none of the above and exercising it. And I think as long as we continue to do that, we'll be on the right track, and we can sort of purify is not really the word I want, but we can make sure that our candidates actually out there and representing our party and our principles, and not just trying to find a way to bum off of our ballot access.
Well, and you've raised one of the central questions facing the libertarian movement at this moment in time. I've had the benefit of doing a candidate show now for over a year. Incredibly, I didn't realize how much time had gone by, and the central issue always seems to be viability versus philosophy, and that's a source of great contention around the country at all levels. Because of, well, number one, you've always got the bogeyman of ballot access hanging over your shoulder. Number two, the debate whether or not it's better to have lots of people on the ballot to draw attention, or these races where folks might get 1% or less, tying up party assets and personnel to do that, or quite bluntly, sometimes the not so happy impact of a tough race like that upon the image of the party as a whole. Where do you generally come down to that? What are your thoughts?
Well, as a state party, we have not been in a position yet to be able to financially support candidates, or to just activate our entire organization to go get behind someone. Candidates really kind of are autonomous out there, and they're not necessarily on their own, but up to this point, they've sort of had to be, because we haven't had centralized resources to put out there for them. We would like to be able to do that, and in fact, moving forward, we're toying with the idea of having an affiliate support committee similar to what National has. I mean, not affiliate, a candidate support committee. We want to be able to provide that if we can identify candidates that really are that would make it worthwhile. I guess that there's something to be gained other than just having someone fill a spot on a ballot. So I would say that, that's really all I have to say about that, is we want to be able to support them when we can identify ones that are viable and that are also, reflect truly what we're trying to do out there, and not compromise our actual principles to just have someone running
for the sake of running.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're just joining us, you are watching the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight. Again, as always, it's a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwark is the chair. Joining us tonight is Whitney Bilyeu, and she, amongst many hats she wears for the Libertarian Party, she is chair of the Libertarian Party of Texas. And we thank her for joining us tonight, because this is an organization that's taken that next step and evolved really into an organization with fully fleshed out committees, responsibilities, working hard to provide people platforms and the resources they can to give people the opportunity to succeed, recognizing the inherent need to find people that are not just talented but superbly talented, focused on individual tasks. It just sounds like, and at moments like this, you recognize how great it must be to work within that. But we must also recognize the sheer volume of work it took to get there and to maintain that effort. So it's just a great conversation, and it's ennobling to hear work at this level being performed at a state affiliate at a time when we're faced by so many challenges as a party and a movement. Whitney, talk about the state environment that you're working within in terms of both ballot access. We're generically aware. Maybe you give us a little bit more background on some of the travails that the party has faced as a result of the less than friendly attitude of the duopoly, and particularly towards what was an outstanding. I mean, I interviewed a bunch of your candidates from Texas this past year in the run up to the November elections, and just outstanding people. Just forget about the libertarian aspect. Forget about how important their candidacies were to the party. Just on a person-to-person level, these folks were just outstanding. So talk to us about ballot access, where the party stands in that whole dust up that the Democratic and the Republican parties, the one that are so focused on folks' right to vote, did to the libertarian movement in Texas.
So we're in a legislative session right now, but the one previously from 2019, they passed a bill. They wanted to pass a bill that was going to double our ballot access threshold to 10% for a statewide race, which would have been devastating. Right. And we were able to get rid of that with some help from some outsiders and from some Democrats, actually, too. And so that went away and was no longer a threat. And then they actually wound up passing a bill that lowered it to 2%, which was fantastic, but also added filing fees. And so the filing fees, while they in themselves are not necessarily an obstacle for all of our candidates, they are unconstitutional and, quite frankly, immoral in the way that they are assessed, because we as the Libertarian Party don't get any resources or benefits from them at all. Right. And so we had some candidates who paid them and some candidates who didn't. And we had 88 candidates on the ballot last cycle. And the Republicans sued me and the party 5 times total over a period of 4 days. And we were able to deal with that pretty swiftly and successfully. And it went to the Supreme Court and the Texas Supreme Court, and we won there back in September. And so all 88 of our candidates were able to stay on the ballot regardless of their filing fee status. And there were a lot of reasons that we were able to be successful with that. One is that we were willing to fight it. And I just, and Becca Congdon, my vice chair at the time, who was also named in the very first one. And she and I were both candidates too. We weren't going to stand for that. Like, that's what they expected us to do, was just to roll over and cave in. The Democrats had just done it the week before to the Green Party, and they were able to do it because the Green Party just wasn't organized and didn't see it coming and didn't have a way to respond with any reasonable defense for it. And it was actually one of the Green Party members who tipped me off to it, and so we were able to respond pretty swiftly and just serendipitously found some counsel that just really did good things for us, and very, very fortunate there. We will probably continue to have to fight these things, but more than likely we're going to be on the initiating end of this moving forward, because what they've done this time is they discovered what their errors were in the last round of suits to kick us off, and they've now tried to kind of shore that up with this particular legislative session and passed. They clarified, which something we already knew, is that they expected all of our candidates, not just our nominees, to pay these fees. And they moved the bill or the law to a different part of the code, which in theory kind of changes what I'm obligated to do as a
Right.
party chair for a convention party, because what they were trying to do was force me to follow the rules for the primary parties. But the legislator had already written stupid laws to begin with, and they didn't even understand the laws they were trying to enforce. So we got really lucky with it, and but it's going to get harder. And so we, at this point, still have filing fees. We still only have a 2% threshold now, though. So that's the plus. But moving forward, we're not going to stand for this because it's not in the best interest of Texas voters first and foremost. And we're the only party out there that's actually standing up for that, and not just for our own, political party and for our own candidates. It's really about not limiting choice for Texas voters.
Yeah, we often talk on the show about the nature of the word disenfranchisement, and it's in particular in the case of the Democrats, so it's a word they throw around a lot. So the irony and the hypocrisy of them effectively working hard to make it easy for every American voter to participate in voting, which I think we all agree with at some level, but at the same time working hard to prevent their choice is oddly Soviet era, Brezhnev era in nature.
Yes.
And
and the Democrats did it too. They did it to the Green Party just before the Republicans did it to us. So they're just as guilty of it.
Right. No, it's and again, we all found out about it probably just not that long after you found out about it, and your efforts were heroic. Not only just winning, but just pointing out the hypocrisy here. Now, I just want final note on that. How do ordinary Texans, folks who aren't in the political bubble, like say you and I are in our respective states, how do ordinary Texans respond to this sort of skullduggery?
They don't like it. They don't like it when we're able to communicate about what's happening. So in fact, when we were testifying last term at the against that threshold doubling bill that they were trying to put out, there were people in the gallery there who witnessed our testimony and came up to me afterwards and wanted to get my information because they're like, nobody else is talking about this. And, they wanted to know what we were up to outside of that and what we all stood for. And they became interested in the party itself. And, these were just independent voters out there who heard about it and wanted it stopped, but thought they were the only ones who were going to be there to speak. And then we were there. We had a dozen people who stood up there and spoke, and all while these ridiculous legislators are rolling their eyes at us and, referring to us as stubborn and what have you. And, we're just not going to take it. And so there were people in the gallery that day who were like, this is not acceptable. And they were really appreciative that we were out there talking about it. And we actually have one of the things that we've been doing for fundraising is we realized we were able to really spin up a good legal fund. It was in defense at that particular time, but I mean, really fast, like, I don't know, a matter of days. And we were able to raise more money than we thought we would be able to. And, Becca and I were like trying to count our pennies and figure, okay, how are we going to pay this lawyer? We've got to get this done. And we had committed a certain amount of money just between the two of us because we were going to fight it. And, she and a couple of the people had the idea of doing this fundraiser thing. And it was just, just putting it out there and all of our, our executive committee members and our chairs and everybody we could just kind of sharing the link to, hey, go donate to this fund. This is what they're trying to do. And we've raised money for that. And we are continuing to raise money for that legal fund specifically, because what we did at that point was establish it permanently, knowing that this was going to continue to happen, and hopefully setting us up to be in a position to go on the offensive, to initiate litigation over these things and sue the state. So we have people who are continuing to give money to that. And usually all we have to do is put it out there and ask, and we get it. And a lot of people out there, something that I want to make sure I share with the other affiliates with regard to fundraising, is that when you have an actual problem that, something like this that appeals to the public beyond just our organization, they will give money to it. In fact, there was our development director reported this weekend that he had a fundraising letter printed in his community, and the printer read it before it got sent out. and called him and was like, I just read this letter. I didn't know this thing was happening. And because of that, he wanted to meet with our development director and learn more about what we were doing. And he wound up contributing a match to our legislative fund, not
Wow.
our legal fund, but to our legislative fund, because that's what the letter was about. And so, and this person is not a libertarian, but they know now what we're doing because they were printing our material and realized this is not right. This just isn't right. It doesn't matter who they're doing it to. They shouldn't be doing it. And these are people that everyone has elected. And so yes, people don't like it. They will support it if you communicate it effectively, and they'll make sure that they do their part to stop it. They're more likely to give to something like that than just to give to the general fund. They don't want to help keep the lights on. They don't want to pay staff. They want to give to something that actually moves them and touches them and affects them. So I want to make sure that all the other affiliates that are listening hear that, because you've got to start doing targeted fundraising like that.
Well, and you just gave life to a critical point. No one's interested in supporting bricks and mortar, filing cabinets, computers. People are interested in supporting issues that speak to them on a very personal level. And sometimes we have to, as folks who are, I always call it the bubble, folks like us who are locked and loaded every day on these issues. And we forget that ordinary folks very often respond to matters of fair play. And the type of internal warfare that's happening on a national level obviously with the Cheney situation and the Republican Party, it just speaks volumes to people individually, and none of it's good. They're at this point in time, with everything that's happened in this country in this generation, people are disgusted by that type of behavior, and we just need to understand that kind of emotional connection voters have to politics, and need to be mindful that we never engage in that in ourselves, that type of attack politics. We've got so many things that we could speak to in terms of our philosophy and our belief system that are so innately good and so innately positive that we just have to somehow force ourselves away, because very often the folks that are pulling these shenanigans, they're their own worst enemies. The public reacts to them in ways that are probably far more effective than we ever can. So let's just stay focused on the target. And of course, that leads me into sort of the final area I wanted to cover with you tonight before we, and always at the end of every show, we engage in what I call shameless self-promotion. So, give you ample opportunities because this show has a life of its own. It'll be on the YouTube channel. It'll stay on the Libertarian Party Facebook channel, the Libertarian LPTV page, and a variety of places. And I've shared it copiously, as I do every week, across the country with different affiliates. And I hope they take the time to work through these conversations we're having, because you're offering so much value here. But let's talk about activism. How important a role does activism play in the day-to-day affairs of the Libertarian Party of the great state of Texas, and how much has that or hasn't that been a motivating factor for folks to join?
That's going to be a harder one for me to answer, because while I try to do as much of the activism part as I can, I'm right now really focused on the administration of the organization itself. And there are people who are really, really good at activism and people who are really good at playing an executive role and at administration. Some of us can do a little bit of both, but that is an area where I think we could have more. More people showing up to the Capitol, more people, going out to outreach events. And of course, we've had to take a break from a lot of events over the last year or so, but we want to start doing that more. We want to, and there are people out there who are on different issues. They're out there, protesting or going and making a showing at different things and having gatherings that are focused on specific issues, like whether it's the marijuana policies or the gun rights or any of that. And so we're trying to also we've got a lot of interest right now in renewing our coalition program. So we get partners, and we have some partners that have lasted for a while with us, but we have a lot of people coming to us now because of the the activity that we have at the Capitol right now, with our legislative coordinator being there on a regular basis and people hearing him speak, we're having other organizations come to us through him who want to partner with us on things. And this is an area where I personally feel like, we need to develop it more. It's just kind of been, at least from my perspective, just kind of willy-nilly and out there, and everybody kind of doing their own thing, and nobody ever really concentrating the efforts, and nobody really organizing it and publicizing it in a way that it reaches all of us and is, has a broader reach and gets more of us there for these events. And so that is something that I want to develop and grow. It's not something that I personally am highly skilled at. So it's going to take, other people stepping up and wanting to do. And we have an outreach coordinator. And so we are, again, going to try to rebuild that particular program and that process. And hopefully through that, we can branch out and get out there more and have more people hear from us.
Excellent. Well, before we just go through some of the basics, where folks can reach out, where folks can donate, maybe if there's a particular list of candidates you can supply us going forward so that we can also provide that to folks. Take a moment, if you will. Imagine, if you will, you had the entire state of Texas listening to this show. What would you say to them right now to make an appeal, particularly based on current events, the performance of Texas state government, some of the issues? But if you were going to give them a minute elevator speech, a stump speech, if you will, I've heard you do it. So what do you want to say to the people of Texas? And also, quite frankly, the people who are listening now or going to listen, who are members of the Libertarian Party of Texas?
Oh, man. Well, I guess what I would want to say to just the Texans at large is that, if you believe that you're in the freest state in the union, you are mistaken. And that shouldn't be the case. Like, we really should be. We should be leading the way in all of these things. And we should have the least restrictive laws to deal with. And if you want those things, the only way you're going to get them is by voting for libertarian candidates. Whether you join the party or not we would love you to, sure, we would love for you to donate, but the reality is the only way you're going to get the things that you want, the only way that you're actually going to be free on a day-to-day basis is by getting rid of all of the people that you've been electing all along and try something different. And, we're providing an option for you, and not enough of you are taking us up on it. So you risk nothing. You really risk nothing by taking a chance and voting for libertarians and just giving us a shot. And you'll see that once libertarian principles are enacted and policies are enacted and candidates are elected, if libertarians are out there doing the work, the result will be something that you'll never want to turn away from. So
fabulous. Shameless self-promotion. How can folks, talk to us about the social media, how they can donate to the Libertarian Party of Texas? Sounds like you've got a very well-defined fundraising operation with separate outreach efforts to a variety of different, areas. Mm-hmm. Give us your pitch there. Where can folks?
Oh man, I'm gonna need staff to start typing in here with all the URLs for all the different funds we have. lptexas.org, obviously, and / I think we've got legal fund. I'm not sure what our legislative fund URL is. I'm sorry, I failed at that. You can just go to lptexas.org and if you want to know how to donate to one of those specific funds, because they are actually segregated funds for us, like separate accounts that we keep this money in, so that it goes to the thing that you want it to go to. You can just reach out to us and we'll make sure that we get you the right links. And I apologize for not having those ready. This is why I have a fundraising department.
Right. John's going to be putting up one or two of those links. John Gapps,
there you go.
Producer, the super producer, the guy behind the big board, and we'll include them in future links. Whitney, this has been wonderful. Again, libertarians need to take a step back for a moment and recognize the kind of growth and the kind of opportunities not only that lie before us that we've taken advantage of. It's been a rough couple of years for people on a lot of different levels, but we we enter the field of battle this year with outstanding affiliates, with a now not just a developing bench, but a bench of great candidates who, we've said it here on this show almost every week, a number of whom will in a few years from now be competing aggressively for not just state senator positions, but federal level positions across the country, and particularly the great state of Texas. We can look to organizations like yours and a bunch of other states, and yours just having done astonishing work, if you will, combining the heart and soul of the philosophical side of the libertarian movement, our statement of principles, our non-aggression principle, with the type of management techniques that the quote-unquote duopoly uses. And that's a lethal combination. If we can somehow maintain our humanity, and what I mean by that, of course, are the things I've mentioned tonight. If we can maintain our humanity as an organization, as a philosophy, as a movement, as a party, as a revolution, and at the same time take the type of techniques that you've talked about tonight and other state chairs have, then there is nothing but success in front of us. Yeah. And I implore people to cast aside the sort of the turmoil that's often depicted on social media and do essentially what Texans get to do when they meet the Libertarian Party for the first time, which is meet people who are motivated, they're activated, they're both not just on a political level, not with that gleam in their eye, as my good friend David Demarest will often say, but really looking to take place in their community at large as stewards of community assets, not a top-down hierarchical government imposing their will, as so happened in so many places over the last year. So I just, I'm in awe. Congratulations. And, I hope you'll continue to send us great candidates that we can focus on our Friday night show, and just keep apprised. If any of the affiliates have major events, we for example, the Alaskan Gold Rush we use as something that we've tried to give additional boost to publicly through this programming. Let us know, because I can tell you, I was in Pennsylvania this weekend, and I spent time with a lot of people from a lot of different caucuses and a lot of different counties and a lot of different towns. And the one unifying factor was a lot of folks traveled a long way to participate, and nothing but good can come from that in the long run. So thanks again.
Well, if I may, one thing that I failed to mention earlier, another department that I have that has been hugely successful and actually has helped to grow our membership and our staff, in fact, is our events department. With all of our quarterly executive meetings now, we're doing a social event. And 2 of the last 3 have been fundraising events, which have sold out. One was a karaoke party, and the other was a really nice, elegant evening with Joe Jorgensen. So that was our first one right after the election. And these events have drawn people from outside of the party, and brought them in not only into the fold, but also financially supporting us. And in fact, we've got a staff member now who, staff volunteer who only came to the party because he heard about the karaoke thing. And that's what was interesting to him. And so he came, and then from being there with us and seeing how we interact with each other and how we engage and how we pull things off, decided he wanted to be on staff too and support us in that way. So having these events where you can get people, and we did for our evening with Joe Jorgensen, we did have people come from other states. I had someone ask me today, if they can come to our convention. And I told him that my heart would be broken if he didn't come to our convention in April. So yeah, so we doing these events and just trying things and, seeing what works. Just everything is an experiment right now. And you can reach people in lots of different ways if you just give them something fun to do and something that might engage them. And so just try stuff and be nice.
Being nice goes a long way, doesn't it? It's amazing during difficult times like this, how simply being polite, how far that can take us as a movement. It's a very important point to close out on. Yeah. Folks, you've been listening to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwak acting as chair, and of course the Libertarian National Committee, Joe Bishop Henchman, our chair. As always, a big thank you to John Gabso. He runs the big board here. My name is Pat Ford. I'm your host. Please join us Friday night as we conduct our Candidates Corner, 9 o'clock Eastern on the Libertarian Party Facebook page. And we promise that I'm excited for this year. We're going to double and triple down on getting as many people as involved as possible, spread as much affiliate and candidate love as we can to the nation as possible. Folks, these are outstanding times to be a libertarian. We are living in a period of time where there is nothing less than proof of concept. Everything we speak to, everything we believe in, well, guess what, folks? We're right. Listen, be safe, be free, be strong. We'll see you Friday night. Have a wonderful week. Good night.